Nick, you also had the Packers coming out of the NFC, I think, before we started the season. What do you think of what Aaron Rodgers had to say? We don't have the full respect of the league, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think that's a nobody believes in us comment from him. I think that's him reacting either to the fact that they were only 4-point favorites at home against Chicago, which I said last week was shocking to me, or just reacting to the fact that, and I think he's right, very often we judge the Packers by how great does Aaron Rodgers look. And Aaron Rodgers and that passing offense have not looked great. If you'd have told me they were going to be 10-3 at this point going in, or 11-3, pardon me, at this point, I would have said, okay, good, my Super Bowl pick's looking good, Candy's Super Bowl pick, but I would have thought it's because Aaron Rodgers is a top 3 MVP candidate. He has not been. And yesterday's game was another game similar to the game last week, I think it was against Washington, where Green Bay gets out to a lead, lets the other team kind of hang around. It's like, wait, all of it, they could drive and tie the game here, but they leave with a win. Very similar to week 1 against Chicago, by the way. Not a pretty game. They made one big play, but they left with a win. And so I agree with Aaron that right now they're maybe a little undervalued, but I also think if they're going to prove you and I correct, Aaron Rodgers has to play better than he's playing right now. Right now, he's not making the critical mistake. For them to beat the best teams in the league, he's got to be the guy that I still believe he can be.
Well, the reason we were so bullish on them at the start of the season was because of how their defense was playing. We saw it in that Bears game that, you had Zadarius Smith, you had Preston Smith. It looked like that defense was going to be able to create some plays and take some pressure off of Aaron Rodgers and give that offense time to figure out that new scheme under Matt LaFleur. Now, to the defense's credit, they were able to get some takeaways yesterday. I think that always helps. But when you have a 21-3 lead in your place against a team that clearly, to me, is inferior competition, you have to find a way to bury them, and I don't feel like they did that yesterday. I mean, if Jesper Horsted decides he's going to lateral it to Allen Robinson, we could be talking about a game that goes into overtime. But all in all, I think this Aaron Rodgers and this Packers offense is doing just enough to be able to win games. But at some point, they're going to have to click. They're going to have to figure it out because the way that they're playing, they're not playing good enough to be able to keep up with the other double-digit win teams in the NFC. There are 5 double-digit win teams in the NFC, so there's a lot of competition. Any one of those teams can beat another on any given Sunday, and so we're looking to see things that can separate you from the pack. We all know that that difference has to be Aaron Rodgers, and it's going to be up to Matt LaFleur to be creative in order to create some more explosive plays on that offense.
I think Aaron Rodgers is right. I think NFL players have egos. They like to, be seen and see their highlights out there and see people talking about them. We haven't spent much time talking about the Packers. They've been flying under the radar, and they do feel like when you look up going in the weekend, they have 10 wins, a chance for 11. It is a little bit surprising to some people. But on the same token, how many players can you name that are difference makers on this team that aren't named Aaron Rodgers? Devontae Adams has had a pretty nice streak. He's getting better as of late. He's really come on strong. On the defensive side of the ball, is there any, I don't see a Khalil Mack. I don't see somebody on that defense that's just a wrecker out there that intimidates you. And you look at the ultimate kind of unbiased perspective of who's a judge of who's worthy. Las Vegas sportsbooks, most of them have about the 7th or 8th best odds to win the Super Bowl. So I think from that perspective, it's probably fair that they haven't got much of the conversation, but I still think they're a threat. But I don't take them more of a threat than the 49ers, than the Saints, than the Seahawks, than some of those other teams that I do. Maybe I'm guilty of not giving them enough credit, like Aaron Rodgers is talking about, but I still need to see a little bit more out of this team and a little bit more of some difference makers start to evolve on this team.
Aaron Rodgers isn't having his typical MVP-type season, and the team is 11-3. Aaron Rodgers isn't going out and lighting it up, and they're still right in the thick of it. I mean, doesn't that go towards what Matt LaFleur is doing with this team and what we wanted to see him do with this team, that it's not all about if Aaron Rodgers plays well, the team plays well?
Pardon me, absolutely. But he has to play better. They have put themselves in this position to get a bye, as you always talk about. They've only had 2 byes ever since Aaron Rodgers has been the starting quarterback. 2014 was the last year they didn't have to play in that first round of the playoffs, which is why I think Aaron Rodgers is so keenly and acutely aware of where they are in the playoff standings right now. But once they get there, they need Rodgers to be vintage Aaron Rodgers and the other things to happen. Because San Francisco showed you they can annihilate this team up front. New Orleans can play whatever type of game you want. And so what I think Rodgers is talking about since the Kansas City game was the last time Rodgers went over 250 yards passing. Since then, they've played 6 games. Now they're 5-1. He has 8 touchdowns and no picks. and he's averaging fewer than 200 yards passing per game. They need, in order to beat the best teams in football that you guys are talking about, they need all of what's going on right now to continue and that passing attack to get an injection. They're not going to get more talented receivers. So Rodgers, I think, knows it's on him.
Yeah, they might not get more talented at the receiver position, but I think Matt LaFleur can do his quarterback a solid and include more of what we saw yesterday. Devontae Adams not just playing the Z, but also playing the X and playing the slot, moving him around to give him opportunities to have one-on-ones because we know what he's capable of doing in those situations. But again, this Packers offense has to get to the point where they can be more consistent in getting explosive plays down the field. Because once we get to the playoffs, it's going to be hard to put together 8, 10, 12-play drives. You're going to have some guys that can be game breakers, and Aaron Rodgers being able to get them the football down the field. So I look for this offense to have to improve in that regard. But I have a little more confidence on that side of the ball just because they have one of the most talented quarterbacks that the game has ever seen. I'm more concerned about what's going on the defensive side of the ball because it doesn't feel like they can stop a nosebleed, especially with that run game. They've got to get that cleaned up if they're going to have any chance. Also, that Packers offense, they've got to be better in situational football, especially on third downs. You got to find a way to be able to sustain drives. So those are just some areas that they got to improve on if they plan on trying to make a run at this thing.
Here's where they are dangerous, is they haven't had to have Aaron Rodgers throw for 300 yards. That's a great spot to be in. And to your point, you know it's in there if he has to do it. Now, if you get in a shootout, it's tough to get in a shootout with the Saints because they have so much firepower, but you know it's in there for Aaron Rodgers, which is why I tend to agree with him, saying maybe we're not giving them quite enough respect as they deserve.
8th time yesterday this season that Aaron Rodgers has only had 1 or few passing touchdowns in a game, so he is going to have to
Only Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield more starts with 1 touchdown or fewer in a game. Well, Jen, it's a hell of a question, and it's an important question because the Patriots yesterday proved what we already knew. Against bad teams, they're going to lean on you, and then your offense is going to wilt, turn into a turnover factory. You're going to make people see ghosts. You're going to make people have 3, 4, 5 turnover games, and the margin's going to be dominant. Going into last night's game, if you look at the upcoming draft order, which means who are the worst teams in football, the Patriots had 2 wins against the 7th pick of the draft, the Jets, a win against the 4, a win against the 3, a win against the 2, and they were just awaiting for a win against the 1, which they now have. So they're 6-0, outscoring those teams by 150 points. There's no shock that they ended up dominating the Bengals. Maybe it was a little surprising. It was 10-10 when the Patriots punting with 1:45 left in the first half. But, of course, it's not shocking. The Bengals didn't muff it, and the Patriots have a lead. And then the Patriots scored points the following. The muff punt, an interception, short field touchdown, a pick six, an onside kick, short field touchdown. So the margin looks the way it does. But, Canty, that offense, even against Cincinnati, what Tom Brady have, 128 yards passing?
Yeah, they had 291 total yards offensively.
I mean, the offense against that defense looked as bad as it's looked, particularly the passing game, all year long. That, to me, if I'm a Pats fan, which I might not be, would be a lot more concerning than impressed with, once again, the defense making a quarterback look terrible.
No, their formula for success is going to remain the same, unfortunately, for Pats fans, because you're looking for your offense to turn the corner, and it just hasn't. I mean, as a defense, you're going into a game. If you hold an opponent to less than 300 total yards, that's lights-out football. And so the Patriots offensively, we keep waiting for this light bulb to cut on, and it just doesn't happen. But good on them for having one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the National Football League. Nick talked about all the turnovers. They had 4 interceptions in the second half, 2 by Stephon Gilmore and 2 by J.C. Jackson. So, I mean, this team's formula has been rely on your defense to create extra possessions in short fields and create scoring opportunities, which then your offense has to take advantage of. They did that in the second half of yesterday's game, and they've been doing that all season. The Patriots have 7 non-offensive touchdowns on the year.
That's crazy.
5 by their defense, and then 2 from block punts returned for touchdowns by their special teams. So that's what it's going to be. Those 2 phases of the football team, defense and special teams, leading the way, and then the offense being complementary.
I'll say this. If they do win a Super Bowl, it'll be the greatest accomplishment of Belichick and Brady's career with this squad on offense, with the lack of weapons that he's working with. But as far as me believing it, how can I, when this team is 11-3 And their losses have come to the leader of the AFC North, the AFC South, and the AFC West. Those are their 3 losses. So anytime they've had an opportunity to silence critics, to say, hey, we're better than, our offense can actually perform in a game that we need them to, they've come up short. So it's really hard to find that. And yet there's a part of me that says, man, I did this last year. I thought it expired. I thought the dynasty had run its course, and then they fixed it coming into playoffs. But I don't see where that solution comes from with the pieces that they have on the field now, unless this defense can come up and be an all-time great, which I just don't believe they're an all-time great defense from what I've seen at this point.
I don't know about that. I mean, just in terms of how they create takeaways and then they capitalize on them by being able to score points or set their offense up to score points. I mean, here's the thing. If the Patriots do get one of those top seeds in the AFC, which is looking like they will, because they got games against Buffalo and Miami, both in their building. If they're able to accomplish that and get that second seed in the AFC, then you're talking about them hosting a game in the divisional round, most likely against the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll see what happens. But that defense is good enough to give that team a puncher's chance in their own building. And based on the track record, I'm assigning the New England Patriots an opportunity to win that game and advance to the AFC Championship game. They've gone to, 8 straight AFC Championship games? So you're talking about winning a home game in January in order to have that opportunity. If you're looking at this team as possibly being able to accomplish that, then I don't know how you can't consider them a contender.
Well, because we know who that home game would come against. It would come against the Kansas City Chiefs. And by the way,
which was a one-possession game.
It was a one-possession game, you're right.
Worse.
And pardon me. And we all saw the Chiefs, we were making the joke of it. But in the snow, one of the things the Patriots have been so good is dealing with conditions. You might want to play this Chiefs team in the wind. You don't want to play them in the snow because they got too much speed and your defenders can't change directions.
And it just doesn't matter in terms of Pat Mahomes playing in weather. It just does not matter. Not to him.
You're being serious.
No, I'm saying in a positive way.
Yes. No. Okay. No, I didn't. I didn't know if you were joking or being serious. I agree with you. The wind and the conditions don't seem to affect his throwing style. But speaking of throwing, here's the difference between the Patriots last year and Patriots we want to write off. Brady didn't look like this. And I know, can we show the package again? We saw last year, he was not as good as 2017. That is not a bad play by the wide receiver. That is a missed touchdown. Show me this one. Now, this one could have been caught, but that is a missed touchdown. That's a bad throw. This one here, who are we blaming on this?
That one's covered pretty good. I could say the receiver give him a little more of a window on that one.
What about that one? Who are we blaming on this? These are missed throws. These are bad throws for a guy who yesterday had 128 yards passing and 37 yards to a wide receiver. And last year, what they did have, if you're going to play the style you guys are talking about, the defense-oriented, you want to have a dominant running game. I understand yesterday the Patriots ran the ball well. They have not shown throughout the season that they have a dominant running game, anything close to it.
No, they haven't shown that, and Rex Burkhead had that one long run at the end of the game after the game was no longer in doubt. But to your point, Tom Brady did miss a lot of throws yesterday. It was a 3rd and 8 that he had in the second quarter, and he missed a throw to Julian Edelman that he typically converts over the middle for a first down. You can't afford to miss those opportunities if you're Brady with your number 1 receiver in man coverage. You can't miss those opportunities. So there is a little bit of concern that age might be catching up with Tom Brady. But again, if we're talking about the Patriots being at home in January, I just have a hard time betting against them just based on the track record and what they've done in the past.
You know how this season's going to end? Remember I think it was 2015, they went to Denver, and Denver got after Tom Brady, and they bought back their offensive line coach after the season. It just feels like that's the way this season is going to come to end. The defense is going to perform. The offense just doesn't have enough, and I think they're going to get exposed in the playoffs.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.